Hi, Judith DA from RVers Life. Just with a brief update. The last time we talked to you, we were in the first stage of evacuation from the Red Fire at Crescent Lake Junction, where we're spending the summer. And we were headed to the coast. And we made that trip, and nothing terrible happened, I'll start by saying. DA had a fishing trip in Gold Beach, a salmon fishing trip in Gold Beach.
Which is the Rogue River, basically. I met this captain while fishing on Odell Lake, and I kind of, in our conversations, I kind of recognized that he was a pretty efficient guy. So I called him up and we made reservations for July 29th, and he had seating available. And so I was all excited to go to the Rogue River. I'd heard about it and Gold Beach and all that, and get involved with the guiding. So we left. We were in smoky conditions.
All the way to Eugene, which is an hour away. And then we took the gorgeous drive out to Reedsport, which is where we hit the ocean and went south to Gold Beach. We stayed at Jott's Resort because that is the resort that this guide operates out of. And so now DA is going to tell us about his day on the water.
So that Jott's Resort, that's kind of where they pick up their guests. There's a dock out there, a very long dock, a couple hundred yards, and they can pick up their guests. So it was really convenient for us to stay in the hotel, walk down to the dock, and be picked up by the guide. The guide was called, his name is Nat, N-A-T, and he runs Scream in Reels Guide Service. I'll tell you how that's spelled. But anyway, I was not really prepared for the hand-to-hand combat that the guides experience while fishing the Rogue River, the mouth of the Rogue River into the ocean. There's about probably a half a mile stretch there, and it's boat central. And they're all going different directions and all this kind of stuff. So that was very interesting to see how my guide navigated all that twists and turns he had to do versus to fish, and all the stuff that was going on around him. So pretty interesting, because being a guide, I'm definitely not used to that, because most of the time I can stay away from recreational boating, but this was what I call hand-to-hand combat.
Okay, but what did you catch?
I got in the boat, and the captain informed me that the bite was a little erratic. So that's a polite way of saying that pretty slow. So I just said, well, I have complete confidence in today and your abilities, and besides, I'm a very lucky fisherman. So as we fished and looking at his electronics, we could see the fish on the bottom, and he could too. And we were targeting them with the offerings that he had, the flashers and the anchovies and stuff like that, but we weren't getting any takers, nothing. And so a couple hours into it, he made a switch. He suspended those baits. He put them above those fish. And within a few minutes of making that change in tactics and depth, we had a takedown. Now, we didn't get a hookup, but that certainly woke us up, and we became more in tune with our rod tips. And then, boom, we got another hit. But unfortunately, the 35-pound leader parted, so that we were all shaking our heads about that, especially Nat. And then just a couple passes out in the mouth of that Rogue River, we landed our first Chinook salmon, and it was a 12-pounder. So I thought, okay, that's a pretty decent fish. And then the back rod went off by Nate, and he gave it to me, and instantly I knew that this was a big fish. The reel was screaming, and that fish was going to the next zip code, which is quite concerning when there's 50 boats around you. But Nate did some pretty good boat positioning there, and we managed to get that fish alongside the boat. And the first mate, Tony, was able to get that net into the fish into the net. And hey, it was a 26 pounder. That was the biggest fish that Nate had landed this season. And so I told him, I'm a lucky fisherman. We ended up going on to that day before closing, and we caught another 22 pounder. So quite the day for the guide service, and quite the day for me and the other guy that was in the boat. He caught the 22 pounder, and he exclaimed that was the funnest fish he had ever caught. So heads up to that. The conditions changed. It started out sunny, and then it got cloudy and quite blustery.
So while he was fishing, I was beachcombing, and I took the drive down the coast to through this gorgeous area whose name I should have in front of me and don't. But in this 14-mile drive, there are numerous stops where you can get out, hike, take pictures, and I did that the whole day. It was fabulous. And then the fog started rolling in, and fog is not my friend. I lived 56 years in San Francisco, so I got back to the resort. The next morning we got up, and early in the morning we hopped on what is known as the Wild and Scenic Cruise on the Rogue River, which is a full day tour and includes lunch. And I'll put information about that in the description as well, because that is definitely something you would want to do once in your lifetime. There's a specific area of the Rogue River on that side that is devoted to recreational fishing or recreation. And then there's a next piece of it, which is another hour's
5 miles
ride or so, which is considered scenic. And then you get into the wild part of the river, and it is truly wild. And we were shocked at the number of rafters, who were coming from the other way, who were coming from the Grants Pass side. And that's a 3-day, an overnight, 3 nights camping. So that's quite an undertaking. Nonetheless, finally, late in the day, we got started and came back to Crescent Junction, and to find conditions very much the same. Smoky. And so we really were considering making a move, even though it's kind of late in the season to be looking for a month's stay somewhere, especially with Labor Day weekend coming up. But we decided we'd just wait a few days and see what happened. And guess what happened?
It rained.
It poured last night. It poured last night. Guess what? Skies are blue. Skies are blue out there as well as in here. So things are great, folks.
So put it out to the universe. We didn't do any dances, but it was certainly on our manifest list. It would be really great if it rained. And it did.
And it really rained.
It did make the ground pretty wet.
So we haven't heard from Central Oregon Fire, but last night there were just this incredible line of vehicles going the other way, leaving the fire instead of going to the fire, which is what we've been watching this whole time. The fire started on the 19th. And it was not being actively fought because there are so many fires right now, and there were so slim on resources.
And there was no structures being threatened.
And no structures threatened. So we were way down on the priority, but that made the...
Although the fire was only 5 miles from us. miles.
Yes.
So that's a little on the short range there. So depending on wind direction and where what the smoke was doing according to the wind direction. So today is clear and pretty exciting.
Very exciting. So take good care, and we'll see you down the road.